Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Bo-chan.
I'm Nimacum.
I'm Van-chan.
In this class, I'll read all of you a part of Ulysses,
S.
L.
Ulysses, James Joyce. Chap 13 Sec 4. Here was that of which she had so often dreamed. It was he who mattered, and there was joy on her face because she wanted him, because she felt instinctively that he was like no one else. The very heart of the Joe woman went out to him, her dream husband, because she knew on the instant it was him. If he had suffered more sinned against than sinning, or even hidden, if he had been himself a sinner, a wicked man, she cared not. Even if he was a Protestant or Methodist, she could convert him easily if he truly loved her. There were wounds that wanted healing with her bum. She was a womanly woman, not like other flighty girls unfeminine he had known. Those sexless showing off what they hadn't got, and she just yearned to know all. To forgive all if she could make him fall in love with her. Make him forget the memory of the past. Then mayhap he would embrace her gently, like a real man, crushing her soft body to him, and love her, his honest girlie, for herself alone, refuge of sinners, comforters of the afflicted, or pro nobis. Well has it been said that his overpraise to her with faith and constant seeking. Never be lost or cast away, and fitly is she to a haven of refuge. For the afflicted because of the $7 which transpierced her own heart. Gertie could picture the whole scene in the church. The stained glass windows lighted up, the candles, the flowers and the blue banners of the Blessed Virgin's sodality, and Father Conroy was helping Cunning O'Hanlon at the altar, carrying things in and out with his eyes cast down. He looked almost a saint, and his confession box was so quiet and clean and dark. And his hands were just like white wax, and if ever she became a Dominican, then in a way habit Patsy might come to the convent for the novena of Saint Dominic. He told her that time when she told him about that in confession, crimsoning up to the roots of her hair for fear he could see. Not to be troubled, because that was only the voice of nature, and we were all subject to nature's laws. He said, in this life and that was no sin, because that came from the nature of woman instituted by God. He said, and that our blessed Lady herself said to the Archangel Gabriel, be it done unto me according to thy word. He was so kind and holy, and often she thought could she work a rich tikasi with embroidered fold designed for him as a present, or a clock, but they had a clock she noticed on the mantelpiece, white and gold, with a canterbird that came out of a little house to tell the time there. This she went there about the flowers for the 48 hours adoration, because it was hard to know what sort of a present to give her, perhaps an album of illuminated views of Dublin or some place. The exasperating little brats of twins began to quarrel again, and Jackie threw the ball out towards the sea, and they both ran after it. Little monkeys coming as the traitor. Someone ought to take them and give them a good hiding for themselves to keep them in their places. The both of them. And Sissy and Eddie shouted after them to come back because they were afraid that tide might come in on them and be drowned. Jackie. Tommy. Not they. What a great notion they had. So Sissy said it was the very last time she'd ever bring them out. She jumped up and called them, and she ran down the slope past him to sing her hair behind her, which had a good enough colour if there had been more of it, but with all the thingamery she was always rubbing into it, she couldn't get it to Gurlum because it wasn't natural, so she could just go and throw her hat at it. She ran with long gandery strides. It was a wonder she didn't rip up her skirt at the side that was too tight on her, because there was a lot of the tomboy about Sissy Cuffrey, and she was a forward piece whenever she thought she had a good opportunity to show off, and just because she was a good runner she ran like that so that he could see all the end of her. Petticoat running and her skinny shanks up as far as possible. It would have served her just right if she had tripped up over something accidentally, on purpose, with her high crooked French heels on her to make her look tall, and got a fine tumble. Tableau. That would have been a very charming expose for a gentleman like that to witness. Queen of angels, queen of patriarchs, queen of prophets, of all saints, they prayed. Queen of the most holy rosary, and then Father Conroy handed the thurible to Canning O'Hanlon, and he put in the incense and sensed the blessed sacrament, and Sissy Cuffrey caught the two twins, and she was itching to give them a ringing good clip on the ear, but she didn't because she thought he might be watching, but she never made a bigger mistake in all her life, because Gertie could see without looking that he never took his eyes off of her. And then Canning O'Hanlon handed the thurible back to Father Conroy and knelt down looking up at the blessed sacrament, and the choir began to sing the Tantum Ergo, and she just swung her foot in and out in time as the music rose and fell to the Tantum Ergo Sacramen. Pun. 3:11 she paid for those stockings and sparrows of George's Street on that Tuesday. No, the Monday before Easter, and there wasn't a brack on them, and that was what he was looking at. Transparent. And not at her insignificant ones that had neither shape nor form the cheek of. Or because he had eyes in his head to see the difference for himself. Sissy came up along the strand with the two twins and their ball with her. Anyhow on her to one side after her, and she did look her stroll taking the two kids along with the flimsy blouse she bought only a fortnight before, like a rag on her back, and a bit of her petticoat hanging like a caricature. Gertie just took her out for a moment to settle her hair in a prettier. A daintier head of nut brown tresses was never seen on a gauze shawl this radiant little. Then, in sooth, almost maddening in its sweetness, you would have to travel many a long mile before you found a head of hair the like of that. She could almost see the swift answering flash of admiration in his eyes that said, her tingling in every nerve. She put on her hat so that she could see from underneath the brim, and swung her buckled shoe faster, for her breath caught as she got the expression in his eyes. He was eyeing her as a snake eyes its prey. Her woman's instinct told her that she had raised the devil in him, and that the thought of burning scarlet swept from throat to part of the lovely colour of Her face became a glorious rose. Eddie Boardman was noticing it too because she was squinting at Gertie, half smiling, with her specs like an old maid, pretending to nurse the baby. Irritable little as she was and always would be, and that was why no one could get on with her poking her nose into what was no concern of hers. A penny for your thoughts. What? Replied Gertie with a smile reinforced by the whitest of teeth. I was only wondering, was it late? Because she wished to goodness they'd take the snot-nosed twins and their babby home to the mischief out of that, so that was why she just gave a gentle hint about its being late. And when Sissy came up, Eddie asked her the time, and Miss Sissy, as glib as you like, said it was past kissing time. Time to kiss again. But Eddie wanted to know because they were told to be in early. Wait, said Sissy. Our enough, my Uncle Peter over there, what's the time by his conundrum? So over she went, and when he saw her coming she could see him take his hand out of his pocket, getting nervous and beginning to play with his watch chain, looking up at the church. Passionate nature though he was, Gertie could see that he had enormous control over himself. One moment he had been there, fascinated by a loveliness that made him gaze, and the next moment it was the quiet, gravest gentleman, self-culture expressed in every line of his distinguished-looking figure. Sissy said to excuse her, would he mind please telling her what was the right time, and Gertie could see him taking out his watch, listening to it and looking up and clearing his throat, and he said he was very sorry his watch was stopped, but he thought it must be after 8 because the sun was set. His voice had a cultured ring in it, and though he spoke in measured accents, there was a suspicion of a quiver in the mellow tones. Sissy said thanks and came back with her tin out and said Uncle said his waterworks were out of order. Then they sang the second verse of the Tantamurgo and Cananohan and got up again and sensed the blessed sacrament and knelt down, and he told Father Conroy that one of the candles was just going to set fire to the flowers, and Father Conroy got up and settled it all right, and she could see the gentleman winding his watch and listening to the works, and she swung her like morn and out in time. It was getting darker, but he could see, and he was looking all the time that he was winding the watch or whatever he was doing to it, and then he put it back and put his hands back into his pockets. She felt a kind of a sensation rushing all over her, and she knew by the feel of her scalp and that irritation against her stays that that thing must be coming on, because the last time too was when she clipped her hair on account of the moon. His dark eyes fixed themselves on her again, drinking in her every contour, literally worshipping at her shrine. If ever there was undisguised admiration in a man's passionate gaze, it was there plain to be seen on that man's face. It is for you, Gertrude MacDowell, and you know it. Eddie began to get ready to go, and it was high time for her, and Gertie noticed that that little hint she gave had had the desired effect, because it was a long way along the strand to where there was the place to push. At the pushcar, and Sissy took off the twins' caps and tidied their hair to Make herself attractive, of course, and Coming O'Hanlon stood up with his coat booking up. At his neck and Father Conroy handed in the card to read off, and he read out Pain and de Colo Prast just the eyes and the NCC were talking about the time all the time and asking her but Gertie could pay them back in there. Uncoying, and she just answered with scathing politeness when Eddie asked her was she heartbroken about her best boy throwing her over. Gertie winced sharply. A brief cold blaze shone from her eyes that spoke volumes of scorn and miserable. It hurt to yes. It got deep because the D had her own quiet way of saying things like that. She knew would wound like the confounded little cur she was. Gertie's lips parted swiftly to frame the word, but she fought back the sob that rose to her throat. So slim, so flawless, so beautifully moulded it seemed one an artist might have dreamed of. She had loved him better than he knew. Light-hearted, deceiver and fickle like all his sex, he would never understand what he had meant to her, and for an instant there was in the blue eyes a quake, stinging of tears. Their eyes were probing her mercilessly, but with a brave effort she sparkled back in sympathy as she glanced at her new conquest for them to see. Oh, responded Gertie, quick as lightning. Often. And the proud head flashed up. I can throw my cap at Twilight because it's leap year. To be continued.